the first question I like to ask is, what are the most pressing challenges facing our community at a local level right now?
Okay, well, a couple different fronts. I think I'm going to start really just looking at the school front right now. Just quality teachers, the access to those, availability of those, and really not just teachers, but also classified employees. I think we've got a little bit of a perfect storm brewing here. You've got, a record high Kansas economy right now. You match that with a declining population in Kansas, and so less people to do the jobs that are out there. So that's definitely the seller's market if you're an employee right now, and that drives the cost of wages up. And I think it gets really difficult for us to be able to hire support staff in our building because they can go somewhere else and make a lot more money. That's a problem. I think that's partially, like I said, to do with the economy, but also to do with just the declining enrollment in Kansas, which is certainly detrimental to a rural community like Hiawatha. We do struggle to get teachers in rural Kansas. That's everywhere across the state. I'm sure it's that way in Nebraska as well. So we're always competing for the best and the brightest, or for even just quality applicants in general. But there's a teacher shortage out there. There's an employee shortage out there. And I know schools aren't the only people suffering from the employee shortage. I would say another reason that is probably one of the causes, or certainly contributing factor at the least, is that there is just not suitable housing in our community. It used to be that people moved to where the jobs were. Now people move to where the housing is because the jobs can be done remotely, but people move to where the housing is, and we do not have that housing. I know we've HEFID in the chamber, and they're trying to find ways to mitigate that problem. And I'm not sure what the answer is. They apply for the grants to bring that type of housing, moderate income housing, not low income, but just moderate income housing, which we need more of. But we're in the same boat as a lot of communities, and the competition is stiff for that. But so it's almost like the community needs a benefactor who would build something on speculation that would, I'm sure would certainly sell and would turn and would bring people to the community. But we simply don't have that housing here in our community. Again, I think a little bit of a perfect storm when you look at the overall declining in population in Kansas. You look at the inability to provide suitable housing here, and the market economy that's out there. It's really tough on communities right now, just not just on schools, but on communities like Hiawatha.
That is understandable. And I'm glad you brought up the topic of remote, the matters of remote based jobs and housing. Things have definitely changed. The next question I'd like to ask, considering the evolving media landscape, what role do you see local newspapers playing in the community 5 years from now?
Mm-hmm. I think first of all, I'm sure that if you were to compare circulation of the actual newspaper compared to what it was 20 years ago, I'm sure you'll see a drastic decline in that, and that's everywhere with any type of print media, I assume. That landscape has changed. Obviously, John Q. Public wants immediacy. It's very time sensitive. They want rapid blurbs, quick blurbs of information. Maybe information's not necessarily the right word, but they want quick blurbs of data a lot of times, and newspapers aren't really designed to just do that. So I think the landscape has certainly changed. I know that the Hiawatha World has made some changes going to electronic media, but I think people just get their news in a different manner now. Obviously, they're on MSC News. They're on obviously all kinds of social media, and that's not necessarily a good sign for our public in general. But so you guys have a real tough hill to climb with that. I don't think just pushing harder and doing what you've done it will be the answer, and I don't think you think it is either. But that to me, what is the niche then that the local newspaper? If you can't be the source of information that people rely on because they've moved elsewhere because of those reasons I've mentioned. So what is the role then? To me, it almost can become a little bit of a community supporter. Of course, if you think about journalism, that might fly in the face of that. It might contradict some of the principles of journalistic integrity and things like that. So I wish I had more of an answer for you, but that's really all I can come up with at this moment.
That's also understandable. And yes, the good points on social media and circulation.
Mm-hmm.
For the third question, in your opinion, what role should our newspaper play in promoting civic participation and community involvement?
Well, I'm going to divide those into, community involvement. To me, that's a little bit of that, just supporting the community, making sure that community folks are aware of everything that's going on with parks and recreation, with events that are coming up. Highlighting things that have happened is always a good thing too. Again, you certainly have people putting things out on their own with their own websites. You have, the Parks and Recs is going to do that. The schools do that. A lot of times we have duplication because we do tend to maybe address different clientele, different parts of our segments of our community. But again, I think when it comes to community involvement, I think it's about promoting the community, promoting Hiawatha, and then reaching outward to promote outside of Hiawatha. And I don't know, that's a tough one to do. Again, you're in that competition. Now, the other part, civic participation, I think that can't be overemphasized. I think that it maybe is a niche that the newspaper has an opportunity to fill in an unbiased manner. I honestly hear people complaining that when anybody on social media is promoting, hey, go, getting out the vote, for example, registering to vote, there's an automatic assumption of evil or some sort of wrongdoing on that other side, that they only want their people to come out and vote. When pop stars or actors and actresses do that, they get hammered by one portion of society for doing that, for clamoring to get people out to vote. The bottom line is people ought to be out to vote, participate in our system, because they ought to understand that you don't want 45% of the population making the decision. And obviously in non-presidential election years, it's less than that, as we all know. So I think that is a niche that perhaps, the local newspaper could fill a vital role in.
Yes, definitely can be agreed on, for sure. The fourth question is, what community events or activities do you believe our newspaper should cover to better connect with our residents?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, it's going to be which residents, you know how that is. It's which group is going to subscribe and that type of situation. But I'm going to be a little bit biased here and say school events. But at the same point in time, when I say that, I know that when you put something out, it's, in the newspaper, a picture of somebody, on the basketball court or someone in the classroom or something like that. Well, chances are we've done that in our own social media. So we've kind of taken away some of your utility with that. And we're not the only ones, of course. It's any organization does that. But school events, other organization events, Parks and Rec, anything that promotes our kids, the thing and the infrastructure of our community, whether that's Parks and Recs, city or Chamber of Commerce events, obviously the festivals that we do here, school events, anything like that, basically anything that is part of the infrastructure and that is nonprofit That could be Heffed, it could be Chamber, any of that type of stuff. I think those are the avenues in which the newspaper could really reach out and help people become involved in those, and strengthen the community that way.
Definitely a good perspective. And the last question, considering the current economic landscape, how can our newspaper support local businesses and contribute to economic growth in the community?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I could see that being difficult in that when you showcase one person, you've automatically, in other businesses' minds, thrown shade on the others. Showing favoritism, things like that. When you look at the world of journalism, you're supposed to not, based on facts, you're not supposed to do that. But I think those things may be changing to some degree. That's a really tough question. But I've wondered though, does the newspaper work jointly with the chamber? Do those entities in the city, for example, do those entities work collaboratively together to kind of create a one-stop locale, electronic locale for people who are looking for information? Do they provide, here's a list of all the plumbers, here's a list of all the, and do they do that? Now, somebody may say something about the chamber. Well, I'm sure that if you pay for a chamber membership, you're on the list, but you're probably not otherwise. And that's okay. That's what the chamber is for. But maybe the city could, and the newspaper, could provide some sort of a resource that way. Where are the connections? What are the resources? Who are the providers of everything here in the community? Whatever services are out there. There is still competition out there for a lot of those services, but at the same point in time, they're always seeking businesses or seeking some more patronage. So how can we help them with that? Probably the only way the newspaper can do that is simply by being a resource of here are the potential vendor, here are the people who can help you, here are the organizations, here are the companies that can help you. I don't think it'd be the newspaper's place to say, here's who you should go to. That's called advertising, and you have people doing that already, I assume. I don't know. Maybe that's very different now too. But that's a tough question, definitely.
Thank you. Yes, and I agree. Tough question. Lots of variables to be had.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Is there anything else you would like to say before the end of this video?
I think that, I don't want to sound negative or anything, but I think all communities need to understand that you're either going to grow or you're going to die eventually, and you have a choice to make, and we need to really struggle and find out, battle and find out what it is we need to do to keep, basically to grow. What do we need to do to grow? What do we need to do to bring more folks into our community? Because that's how we grow. It's the only way. Been here 7 years now. I've probably only seen some slightly declining population. Our enrollment is starting to decline slightly too. But again, it's hard to grow enrollment if we're not growing as a county or as a community or anything like that. It's very difficult. So I think the answer is, what do we do to bring more people to Hiawatha? How do we get the word out? But more importantly, how do we get the housing? How do we make it possible for people to be here? Getting the word out is one thing, but if it's not feasible, if there's not housing, there's not those opportunities, then it's just getting the word out, but the word doesn't end in any success. So I think that's going to be the secret to a long and growing future here for Hiawatha.
Thank you. This is Lonnie Moser, Superintendent. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Have a good day.